Well, the sudden stop of trade talks between Canada and the U.S. is creating concerns in the financial markets, but one of the sectors affected hardest will be the auto industry. And what is that sector going to face and go through? Let's talk with Flavio Volpe, president of the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association. Flavio, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Roger.
Been a rough couple of weeks for you.
Yeah, or a rough year, but definitely the last couple of weeks, Stellantis news, GM news, not good. And, now the president is on a bit of a tirade after the Oval Office meetings, which I thought had a good tone, but then ended up focusing negotiation efforts on priority sectors that didn't include automotive. So we're here. We know what the challenge is, and we need to, get a better sense of how to deal with a president who changes footing every single day.
Does it feel like this maybe is just a pattern on how he negotiates, and he's going to suddenly turn around and offer the old olive branch again?
He might, and we don't have to look too far back. We go back 2 weeks, and on a Friday, he said 100% tariffs on China. They're the worst ever. And then by Sunday night, he had pulled back on that. It might be the case here. I did note that in his post last night, he said, we're halting all negotiations with Canada. Then he updated that post this morning and deleted the old one. And on the new one, while he said, hey, by the way, you're trying to interfere with the U.S. Supreme Court, he did not repeat the fact that all negotiations were off. I think he is annoyed by the ads, but it probably does speak to the efficacy of that type of advocacy. And those ads, they were first revealed by the premier at a business luncheon in Toronto about a week and a half ago, and a focus group of 1,200 Canadian political and business leaders thought that they were calm and well done. Roger, we spent the first half of this year, our industry, especially the parts sector, campaigning very loudly in the U.S. about if you tariff Canadian auto parts and Mexican auto parts, you're going to shut down the U.S. auto industry. And we were in every single newspaper on every single channel, and we got an exemption there. We were a lot firmer and to the point than these ads were. I know a lot of people today are saying, look, Doug Ford and the Ontario government miscalculated this one. I'm not sure. The president's had a pretty bad week with demanding $250 million of compensation from the DOJ for being prosecuted, and then tearing down the East Wing of the Oval Office. And then, talking about, almost like former Philippine President Duterte of killing drug dealers. And so if you take the context of what he's saying about Canada in the context of his full week, it's part of a wider behavioral pattern this week. So, hard to say what's the next move. And if we say, oh, just pull the ads, I think that's easy to say. But, if he's willing to drop talks so quickly, you have to wonder whether his intentions on those talks were in good faith, or if this is just a negotiating tactic.
And let's just look back for a second for those two plant closures that were the Stellantis and the GM electric truck one. Were those something that were probably coming down the pipe, or were they driven by the tariffs?
Well, you and I have been talking about this through the year. Those were the two most vulnerable plants because they were paused on production. There are empty plants in the U.S. On the Stellantis side, there's Belvidere, Illinois, that didn't have a product. And on the GM side, we saw the plant in Fairfax, Kansas, get extra SUV production during the same announcement when they lost their electric, the Bolt vehicle. And so we said these two were vulnerable. We had hoped that we would see a deal a month in, 2 months in, 6 months in. I can't say that it was unexpected, but also the companies had a choice. They didn't have to decide to appease the U.S. President only. And in both those cases, those companies have been in this country for longer than 100 years. And in those plants, those specific plants, 35 and 63 years. What we said was, Canadians have co-invested, Canadian suppliers, Canadian workers, the union, we've all co-invested. We helped save those two companies from failure in the great financial crisis. We expect more. And the federal government, I think, did express that quite succinctly in their move to pull back some of the remission bonuses they gave them.
Is that enough? And also, I think there's also threats of lawsuits. Is that enough, or what more can Ottawa do right now?
Well, you have to be careful on the lawsuit to say, look, we're going to inventory what we think damages are and demand them from you. Well, if that number's too low, even though there was $13 billion commitment to Stellantis, that this was part of it, that money hasn't flowed yet. And so the other side was, if you're forgiving tariffs on vehicles that are imported here, and in Stellantis' case here, that's 130,000 cars a year. So the government has said, look, on 65,000 of those, you are now going to have to be charged a tariff. That's about $625 million. That is going to wake up the CEO to say, oh, it's costing $600 million to move Jeep Compass to Belvedere, Illinois, but your penalty is $625 million. Maybe you should find a car for that plant.
Okay, and what about for other foreign groups? China, I know we have Toyota, Hondas here. Is China realistic to try and bring into Canada as a partner?
Look, the Chinese haven't indicated that they want to manufacture here, and I know a lot of people say, well, let's turn to them. Well, I turned to them. The APMA turned to them in 2016, 17, and 18, big Chinese manufacturers, and tried to negotiate to have them invest here and buy from supply companies here and employ Canadians. When we arrested the CFO of Huawei from the U.S. extradition request, and they went and incarcerated the two Michaels, they dropped all plans. The Chinese are not looking to invest here. They're looking to sell the product at a very low cost to take over the market like zebra mussels. That's their advantage. So I think we need to be very clear about the fact that the best path is to get peace with the U.S., get peace with these American car makers who helped build this industry and vice versa for the last 100 years here in Canada, and to acknowledge just how important it is that Toyota and Honda are extremely solid partners in manufacturing cars here in Canada, and today probably are responsible for more than 2/3 of the vehicles made here, and they're not making noises where they want a better deal or they're
I got to end you there. Right? We're almost out of time, Flavio, but thanks for talking to us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Flavio Volpe is the president of the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association.